Hello, everybody. It's Larry Johnson, your host for A Principal's Voices, and I'm delighted to have with me today a young man, and he is younger than me, Jonathan Fanning, who speaks, advises, does work on leadership. He does a lot of things, probably carries out the garbage too, but that's beside the point. Uh, he's here with me today, and we're going to be talking about his background, what led him to what he's doing now, and then we're going to pivot a little bit and talk about how what he teaches and what his experience is applies to what I'm going to call a not-for-profit corporation. So,
Mm.
welcome, Jonathan.
Yeah, great to be with you, Larry. So it's such an honor to be have this conversation.
So, give us just a little bit of a in capsule of where you come from, what you do, just kind of that. What is it? The elevator speech?
Sure, sure. Yeah, I was very fortunate to have a few big wake up calls in my life, and I honestly I'm better at ignoring them than hearing them. But one of them I couldn't ignore. I was in a car accident early in my career. I was coaching leaders in big companies, like Ford Motor Company, helping them change direction. But I was in a car accident, warm day, cold night, black ice. And my car starts sliding on the highway, and two tractor trailers obliterated my car. And in the moment you don't realize how close to death you are, but the
Yeah,
next day, the next when I saw the car, I thought, like, how did anyone survive this? Because my where I was sitting, that seat didn't even exist anymore. One of the trucks hit my door. I watched it hit my door and leaned away, and then I was unconscious. But it was one of those wake up calls that we get, and I've shared this story in a lot of places, but I always say we all get these. This is not unique. We all get wake up calls. They come different ways, different angles,
yeah,
and then we have this question of, will you do something with it? And
yeah,
that one, I didn't want to waste it. I thought, like, that could have been the end, and the scoreboard would have said Jonathan did this with his life and didn't do any of these things. Or
yeah,
this is the kind of friend he was, the kind of person he was, the kind of son, brother. Um, and honestly, Larry, I started thinking I need to be a better person. I need to be a better friend to the people I'm a friend of. I need to be better at saying no to things that are distractions or not worth. I don't know how long I have, but I don't want to waste time. If I
yeah.
only have 6 months or a year or 5 years or whatever it is, at some point it's over. And yeah, it was one of those wake up calls, and I started asking the question of, what kind of person are you becoming? And are you
Mm-hmm.
any good at that? And one of the simple ones, and it was crazy to think about this, but one of the simple ones was, how appreciative am I? I started asking that question. Because especially after the accident, there were two surgeons and two nurses who helped us a lot. My older brother was in the car with us. The truck shattered the side of his face, and we thanked two surgeons and two nurses. We said, without you, I don't know if we're alive. I don't know if my brother, can never speak again. And, like, you, what you did. And it slowly dawned on me that it was a lot more than two surgeons and two nurses,
Mm-hmm.
because behind the scenes there are, the ambulance tech, the funding, the IT, the finance side, the administration side, hundreds, really. We were airlifted. My brother was helicopter airlifted to Pittsburgh to work on his brain and his skull. The helicopter crew, the people that keep that running, the people that financed that. There are layers and layers. And I realized that if I just wanted to get better at one thing, if I could get better at appreciating life, people, it'd be a game changer. And long term, over the next couple of years, I wrote a book called "Who Are You Becoming," and started shifting a lot of my leadership work to that question. Are you more courageous now than you were a year ago? Are you more focused? Are you better at letting people know they matter? They made a difference in your life? And my answer to most of those questions was, not really. Not really. I wasn't closing that gap on purpose before that car accident. So that's a little bit of where I come from in a nutshell.
Okay, all right. So, what's your day-to-day business these days?
I spend a lot of time in leadership development with companies, big companies and small family run businesses, and just about everything in between, from Mercedes-Benz and McDonald's and Mars Chocolate to the fire department of New York, to small family businesses that are trying to figure out how do we develop the next generation to build the leadership and culture, and all of that work is around authentic leadership.
Mhm.
This probably makes a lot of sense to you, but we've all been around someone that we sort of followed them because we were stuck there. Maybe because they had a role, and if you want to do work with us, you kind of have to follow our, or my approach. If
Oh,
you want
yes.
my, yeah, if you want my funding, you have to kind of do my stuff.
Oh,
But
yes.
then there's this complete opposite where we give people the permission to have tremendous influence in our lives. And those people, if they text you or call you and say, I need help with something this weekend, we just say when and where.
Hmm.
Drop
Yeah.
everything. I'm there because I owe you. I am who I am, partly because of the influence you had in my life. And it kind of went with the accident, but I started studying those people. Because you can lead and get results without completely being that,
Yeah.
but that's not who I want to be. So when I do work with the business, that's one of my first questions is, are you serious? Do you really want to do something great here? And that means it's not about you. If it's
Oh,
just
yeah.
if it's just
Let's emphasize that it's not about you. That's
yeah,
not
yeah,
rule number one. Okay.
mm,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah. And that phrase was one of the hardest phrases for me to come to terms with, because in general, the world doesn't say that to us. We get these loud voices over and over again that say it is about you. You know, do some me time. Self care, and the question is why? So that you have something to give. I'm a dad. I have two teenage daughters. We could do a long moment of silence for that. But do I need to pause life sometimes and step back and recharge and re-energize? Yes, but why? Right? And if it's all about
Yeah.
me, I might do that a lot. But if it's really all about how can I serve, what cause is bigger than me that I can serve, then I say, yeah, I need to recharge, but it's got to be in the right balance. Like I get to travel a lot for my work. I just did keynotes in Idaho and Utah and Pennsylvania and Texas and Maine over the last couple weeks. And so often I was in Utah and I did a beautiful hike in the mountains, the day I arrived, and I had a keynote the next morning. And I thought, like, I need to do this because I need the energy to give to my group tomorrow for my keynote, but I also need it to have when I get back home. And I take pictures and I'll tell my kids, I say, we should make this trip together, you
Hmm.
know, and if I was just doing it for me, I might make the trip again. But instead, I'm saying, no, this is for my kids. This is for the group I'm trying to serve tomorrow. Um, and we know that, right? We feel that, right, Larry? I mean, think about it. You ever go buy a car and the
Yeah.
car salesman is like, it's all about him or her. And you're like, you feel it. They might say all these amazing things. They might smile. They might be like, oh, Larry, how's the family? How's your podcast doing? And you could feel it. If it's all about them, you could feel it. Same exact words, but we have this little
Hmm.
almost radar that says, is this guy in it for him or is this
Hmm.
bigger?
You know, first of all, you were in Idaho and you didn't call me, Jonathan. Naughty, naughty, naughty. Okay. But I'll forgive you,
All
maybe.
right. Perfect. Perfect.
Were you up north or down here in the Boise area?
I was in Boise. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's even worse.
I'm
Okay.
sorry. Well, I'm in Boise again in a few weeks.
All
So
right.
I'm,
Well,
I'm yeah, yeah.
call me
I'm,
up.
I'm stopping by.
All right.
Yeah, I don't have a
Okay.
place to stay, so I'll be at your house.
All right. Just let me know.
Perfect.
All right. Uh, so the idea that you just really talked about is that leadership is a self-emptying thing. But yet you feel yourself from being self-emptying. And I
Yeah.
want to pivot to that thing called a not-for-profit corporation.
Mhm.
Now, I think what I do, and that is I teach people, or I show people, no, I don't really do any of those things. I allow them to create aligned cultures inside their organization, which produce that kind of sustainable revenue. Uh,
Mhm.
if you're
Mhm.
reaching out to philanthropists, you need to present yourself as their servant in many ways. You're serving
Mhm.
their needs, you're serving
Yeah. Yeah.
what they can do. And then everyone in the organization has to have that same understanding. And that's where it often breaks down. They're
Mhm.
professionals that do this, otherwise known as fundraisers and development officers, but they're
Mhm.
everybody else that's involved in some way. And that
Sure.
comes from the culture of the organization. Now, a couple of things. A lot of not for profits use that as a way of saying no money.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
Now, and I want to talk about the not for profit we know in the tax code as a C3, which is a charitable organization. Okay. That covers a wide range of things.
Oh yeah, sure.
And the distinction that they have over, say, a sole proprietorship or a stock held corporation is the only real distinction is that excess revenue is retained within the organization. It's
Mhm.
not paid to stockholders or other interested parties. That's the only real difference. Both
Mhm.
organizations have to have a working business model to
Mhm.
survive.
Mhm. Oh
All
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And it's not on good feelings alone. All right. There's
No.
got to be something that makes sense there. So you talked about getting over yourself. I don't
Mhm.
know what your experience has been, but I work with a lot of nonprofits, and that's often a real issue for these people
Mhm.
because, well, after all, they're doing such great work, Jonathan.
Mhm. Mhm.
Hello.
Mhm.
Well, that's okay. Well, for-profit corporations can produce outstanding products and services. They
Oh yeah.
deliver on their promises. All right,
Yeah.
and it's not a bait and switch or inferior. That's often the
Mhm.
big bad corporation. I love that. And of course there are elements of that, but they're the big bad nonprofit too,
Mhm.
where
Mhm.
they become disjointed, distant. They're driven by something other than what their original founding principle was, but they somehow think, well, I deserve support because I do such good work. You
Mhm.
want to you want to
Mhm.
respond to that?
I absolutely love this conversation. You know, I joke quite often that I get to do what I get to do because I don't win at poker. I can't, I'm not good at pretending something is what it isn't, and since that accident, I've been a fan of what I call game changers. But game changers more often for me and you, and maybe for a culture, maybe for a whole organization, but we all need them, but it doesn't mean we go looking for them.
Right.
And most of the time, the problem with game changers is, and I smile when I say this, but they're not complicated. Most of the time, they're not complicated, and most of the time, they're not comfortable. And we honestly we want them to be complicated and comfortable. And partly because if they're complicated, I don't have to do it. I can wait. There's a lot to that. I can't get to it. But the expression, for example, an apple a day will affect your health, right? Everyone's heard it. Everyone's heard it, but I've asked the question at a keynote with 3,000 people in healthcare. How many of you know someone who eats an apple every single day? And these might be all high level leaders in healthcare. 3,000 people, maybe five hands will go up. Oh, I know someone who eats an apple every single day. And you think, and this is in the healthcare world, right? This is not a world where they don't, maybe they could pretend they don't know that an apple will affect my health. So I say all that to say this, and a lot of my work is in the servant leadership under that umbrella. The hardest piece of it for people who are attracted to the concept of servant leadership is not caring about people. It's not having a cause that's bigger than you, even though that's maybe
Yeah.
second. The hardest one, and I usually, when I speak on this topic, I usually start with this one, it's serving needs, but not necessarily wants. And for a simple example as a dad, my youngest daughter Maya, when she was 6 or 7, she really wanted to have M&Ms for breakfast. And we yeah, yeah, and we all knew that wasn't what she really needed, but she wanted that, right? And in the nonprofit world, I see this as a massive dilemma because people who care tend to be drawn into the nonprofit world. And I'll put it under this umbrella. When I was a freshman in college, I was studying engineering, and I had a professor who gave us this little assignment, and he gave us 6 weeks to do it. And I was good at math and science, so I looked at the assignment and I said, okay, 6 weeks to do it. I'll do it the day it's due or the day before. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Which is, hey, that's, and the assignment was simple. It was we were going to build an aircraft. We were studying mechanics of flight, whatever. We're going to build an aircraft, and it could be made out of paper and all these different things. And it had to be in the air. We were going to go to the roof of a 3-story building, throw it off, and if it was in the air for 15 seconds, we get an A. 14B, 13C,
Yeah.
12, right? And but we had the whole class to do it, so you could throw it over and over and over again. And I looked at the instructions, didn't even read them really, because and thought, okay, paper, 15 seconds, got it, skimmed it. The day before I fold this airplane, it took me 2 minutes to do it. And this was a test grade in college, right? We go on the roof, and my first attempt was 7 seconds. It's an F. And I ran down to the field, 3 stories down, grabbed my test grade from the lawn of the college. And before I went back up, I stopped in the computer lab and I took out about 2 printers worth of paper, probably 600 pieces of paper. And I run back up to the roof and I thought I'll make, 600 airplanes if I need to. I'll just stay on the roof and launch one after the other until I hit the 15 seconds. And I did that twice. And then I thought it takes at least 20 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute to fold a nice airplane. And I just held up a sheet of paper on the roof of the building and let it go. My experiment, right? It took me 5 seconds to run the experiment, let go of the piece of paper, and it was 10 seconds. Still an F, but
A little better.
getting better. Yeah. And I had 600 pieces of paper. So I just started dropping them one after the other. And eventually one of them is in the air for 17 seconds. I get an A, and here's where this ties into servant leadership. That professor was a consultant for Fortune 500 companies. I'm a freshman in college, but I thought I knew everything. And I thought if that's you, you want to consult, you want to tell people how to do stuff. So I said to him, I said, would you write me a letter of recommendation? And he said, certainly. I had an A in his class. I had a 4.0 my first year of school. And he writes me a letter of recommendation, but he does not give it to me. He puts it in the career services office on the other side of campus. And he said, Mr. Fanning, your letter is over in career services. And I thought, like, you could have just handed this to me, but you didn't. I went over there, and the letter is on his consulting letterhead, which I had requested because I didn't want college letterhead. I wanted, like, this consultant
Right.
thinks this guy. Yeah. And it says, very briefly, it says, Jonathan Fanning has a lot of talent and does just enough to get by. Yeah. Yeah. So, Larry, what do I do with that? What do you think you do with that?
Well, it depends on your personality. I think if you were really emotionally intelligent, you'd go to him and say, "How can I improve?" or something, or "What do I
Mm,
need to do here?"
mm,
Kind of the big mea culpa.
I like
Uh,
that.
uh, or you could do the usual late adolescent thing. Well, just him, he can just go jump,
Hmm.
whatever.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
know better. And, he's just
Yep.
an old whatever. And, what does he know? And, the usual sort of thing, which, by
Yeah.
the way, is often the response that I've seen among nonprofit leaders. They
Hmm.
really have a very high opinion of themselves,
Hmm.
especially when
Hmm.
there's any sort of moral intonation here.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and so that's what I've seen. And
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
other thing I've seen is
Mm.
many nonprofit leaders, they don't understand the dynamic of their business. And here's what I mean by that.
Mm,
Yes, they have a service business. They're providing services to some
mhm,
people. And I will ask them often, who are your customers?
mm.
Well, not all the time, but many times they'll say, well, the people they serve. And I
Yeah.
say, no, those are
Yeah.
your beneficiaries. They're benefiting from your work. Your
Mhm,
customers are your investors, the people who are putting money into this, your donors.
mhm,
Be
mhm.
focused on them, and the
Yeah.
rest will take care of itself.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
the other thing you were talking about, these people who are caring, I call them nice people. I like to
Mhm.
say, God save me from nice people.
Oh
You
yeah.
know,
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
what would
Yeah.
you say? Go ahead.
You and I were talking about this in an earlier conversation that I am who I am and you are who you are because of some moments like this in our lives. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and if you trace back great things that happen in the world, whether it's on a small scale, which I don't know, I mean, a family is not a small scale really when you think about it, but
No.
I'm a better dad because of something, one of my aunts said to me when I was a kid. And if you try to look at those little, I call them, little game changers or frying pan moments where like you sort of got hit over the head with the frying pan, it wasn't a nice experience usually,
No.
um, but it was exactly what you needed, and quite often it was in a way that you needed it. Because I mean, the
Mm-hmm.
reason I told that story about that professor is if he told me face to face, I think he knew me better than I knew me. And I
Oh,
think
yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. And I think he knew that if he told me face to face, I probably just ignore it, blow it off, argue with him. But if he made me go across campus and he put it in letterhead, right, and didn't write anything extra, so I couldn't miss the point. He could have written a long, but it was just that sentence. And I think he went in his head. He thought he's going to go. If he goes and gets it, he'll get it, and he'll look at this, and he'll want to rip it up. He'll be mad at me, but he'll be on the other end of campus, and he'll probably have to read it a few times. And
Like, am I really reading what I'm reading? Is
yeah,
this
yeah,
really what it's
yeah,
saying?
yeah, yeah. And I challenge people in leadership roles around the world, and but especially on the nonprofit side, to ask a few questions relative to this. Number one is, do I have enough people in my life who tell me what I really need to hear, even if it's not what I want to hear?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, all of us, honestly, I don't know a person on the planet that can answer absolutely to that question. All of us could use one more,
Yeah.
you know? And sometimes that person is right next door, but we have to ask them for the feedback. And they've been waiting for 3 years or 30 years to tell us, like, my wife Dominique, I'll say, hun, if I could be better as a husband at one thing, what do you recommend? And she'll look at me like, one? Oh.
Just one?
Yeah, yeah. But if I say I like, if I could get better in just in one, let's just give me a week. Let me try to be better at that one thing for a week. She'll tell me something I need to hear, right?
Yeah.
And I share that because all of us have somebody close to us who, if we say, "I want to know," and then we be quiet, they'll tell us. And
Well,
so that's a tough question.
and I think one thing that I believe is an essential quality of serious leadership is people that I've known that are at this top level. They really know what they don't know. All right. And
Mm-hmm.
they freely admit that. I don't know anything about this or this, and yet they may need to know those things. So
Mm-hmm.
the way they acquire that is through some very good counsel.
Mm-hmm.
They get someone who's very expert in that particular area and will help them.
Mm-hmm.
And they are. It's that I know I'm good, but I know I'm not good at everything. And so
Yeah.
the way to get better is to find out where I need help and then accept that help.
Yeah.
Um, and it's Jonathan, it's not always easy to find. And
Mhm.
even if you go out looking for it, because
Right.
you're a consultant, I've been a consultant. And I know that one of the drives in a consultancy is let's tell the client what they really want to hear, what they want to hear, not what they
Mhm.
need to hear,
Yeah.
because you're being paid by them. It's
Mhm.
and you know I don't know how your business is structured, but I know that in the bad old days when I was a consultant, we were using what I call the dollars per second model, and
Mhm.
so it's all time based and it's not project based. And so, being having that courage to say to someone,
Yeah, yeah,
Jonathan, this is what I'm seeing, and
yeah.
then you having the courage to take me at face value,
Oh yeah,
um, and that we
yeah,
have that trust. That's what it comes down to.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Yeah, Larry, we tell the companies and the organizations that we do leadership work with, we tell them that if it doesn't pay for itself in the first 90 days, you probably picked the wrong program. And there's option two. You have the wrong people going through it,
yeah.
which could be you. But yeah, you don't. It's a lot easier to get advice from someone who will tell you what you want to hear. A lot
Mhm.
easier to get,
Oh yeah.
and they'll
Or
line up. Yeah.
or people who will give you the proverbial quick fix in one form
Mhm,
or another.
mhm, mhm.
Um,
Yep.
I was going to say something about that. That what I found and is that not for profit people tend to want they tend to be not very self reflective fundamentally, because they're so well motivated to do what they do.
Mhm,
Why would they
mhm.
need to pause and think about how they're doing it?
Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
and then the other piece of it is, they tend to be, and of course, I guess as the organization gets larger, this is less, but a lot of your mid-sized nonprofits, I'd say your 10 to $20 million organizations, um, they tend to be very tech naive.
Mhm.
And the tech companies have sensed that, and they
Yep.
sell them
Yep.
these things. They sell tools that they promote as solutions.
Right. Right.
And I've seen that over and over. And the numbers bear it out too. I think a
Mm.
nonprofit typically only uses about half of the features in the CRM they buy,
Mhm.
which means they've
Mhm.
severely overbought, is what they've done.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
of course, they believe the snake oil that's sold to them. The latest one is called AI.
Mhm.
That's the latest snake oil.
Mhm.
And and somehow that somehow relieves them in their mind of doing the hard work,
Oh
you know.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah. And
so,
that's one of those snake oils that's sold in addition. We do this incorporating AI, marketing with AI, fundraising
right.
with hiring with AI, training and development with AI. So it's a paintbrush to sell. Yes, it's amazing. Yeah.
uh,
Mhm.
um, so, uh, can you give us a little story? I love stories. Can you
Mhm.
kind of pull out a story from your background? Maybe you can keep, as I say, you can change the names to protect the guilty, um, but a little something that would provide a little bit of a light into some of these things. Anything you'd like to
Sure.
share?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I spent a lot of time doing turnarounds, and this one was in the automotive industry, and it gets at all of these things we're talking about. Um, one factory I was spending a lot of time, and they had about 2,000 employees, and they brought in a new plant manager. His background was from Toyota. He ran factories for Toyota, and this other company said they're great at what they do. Come and run a factory for us. And I'll tell you a couple things that happened there. Number one, he pulled me aside one day and he said it's a lot easier to run something that's already run well than to change something that's run. And what a beautiful statement, because you find out if someone can lead if you ask them to make sustainable, positive change. That's
Yes.
the simplest way to find out. Lots of people can manage something that's already good. But he didn't like this part of the story. He told me one visit to his factory. He said, I just had something happen that I'm not happy with. He said, I sat down with the leadership team a couple months ago. And I said, Toyota has this process where they put a stop button on the final assembly line, where if a car comes through that has a certain quality issue, they can stop the line.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll play music in the whole factory to get everyone's attention. It's almost like a air raid warning. Um, and then they'll have to figure out the root cause, because otherwise the line's not starting again. And he said, I told the whole leadership team this, and they said, yeah, 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 sounds good, sounds good, sounds good. Let's do that. And he said, well, when are we doing it? And they said, well, let's kind of put a plan together. And he said, why don't we start doing it? And they said, "Oh, like now? Yeah, yeah, let's start now." He he said so they started doing it.
Yeah.
And a few weeks later, he's on the factory floor, doing, he called it, in Japanese they call it gemba, where the action is, like live from, the where it happened. And he said, I'm walking through the factory floor, and the line does not stop at all. And I had this thought, like, are we better already? I don't think so. What's going on? And he said, I just kept walking, and I walked into this part of the factory that was like a massive warehouse, not usually in use. It was usually for when they were launching a new car, massive warehouse. And he said, the doors are closed and the lights are off. And I thought, I'll wander in there. And he said, I opened the doors, these massive doors. The lights are off. It's quiet, but it's completely full of cars, and on each one on the windshield had a little piece of paper that said what was wrong with it, and when it was built. And he said every single car was built in the last few days and had the same exact quality issue. And he said, I was ready to just scream, like, this is exactly what we're supposed to be stopping the line for. If the same
Yeah.
quality issue happens over and over. And he said it was hundreds of cars. He said, I think there were 600 cars in this warehouse. And now some of them had broken mirrors or dented doors because they were packed in there and in the dark and quiet. And he said he pulls his management team into a room, and he said, "What's going on?" You know, and so he's telling me about this, and I said, "Rich, who's lying, and to whom are they lying?" And this plant manager, Rich, said, "My team, my team, my team. They said they were going to do it, and they didn't." I said, "Yeah, that sounds like that's part of it, but is anybody else lying here?" And Rich just looked at me, and I said, "Well, you think someone else could be lying in this story?" And Rich said, I think uh, I think I'm guilty too, because in that meeting they said they would do it, but their body language, everything about them said they were not going to do it, but I wanted to believe that they would. And the part of the challenge in this story is that we all have things like this that we pretend it's not broken, but we know it's there. We know
Yeah.
there's a room full of 600 cars with the problem. It's not, you go to the doctor and the doctor's like, get on the scale, and you're like, uh, I know how much I weigh, you know, and the doctor's like, how's this going? Like, and we all have things like this. We know, like, if I do 30 minutes of good cardio, my thinking goes up another level.
Yeah.
My creativity, my work goes up to another level. I'm in the middle of writing a book on servant leadership. I write much better if I start the day doing something, and
Physical.
I, yeah. And so often, Larry, I lie to myself. I'm like, yeah, but today is too busy. I've got too much going on to do that. And
Mm.
and then I don't, right? And if somebody pulled me aside and said, who's lying to who here, really? And the answer is quite often me to me. And that's around this idea of needs not wants and nice versus good. If you ask the question 10 years from now, what am I working on today, that the ripple effect will be hard to comprehend.
Hmm.
It forces me to look at things a little bit. It forces me to address the real need. You mentioned a few weeks ago when we were talking 10x versus 2x.
Yes.
And if I ask that question, how do I 10x the impact here? Huh. If I ask the question of how do I build something that years after I'm not here will be still profoundly impacting the world, then it makes me look at the things I need to address,
Yes.
even if I don't want to address them.
Hmm. You the story is superb because it speaks to the need to get everyone in the organization with the same point of view, the same understanding.
Yeah.
Um, And in fundraising, the nonprofits, they often, maybe they don't officially farm it out, but they really farm it
Mm.
out. All
Yeah,
right,
yeah,
they hire somebody. Well, you just go over there and do that, and
yeah,
and
yeah,
we'll just reap the benefits when they come our
right,
way,
yeah,
instead of
yeah.
understanding. I may have told you this story. I don't know. This occurred a year ago now, and it was in a small town in Montana, about 5,000
Hmm.
people,
Hmm.
and there is a billionaire that lives there. Okay, now if you're a billionaire in a town of 5,000, you're going to be a known person.
Hmm.
People will know who you are. Okay, may be
Hmm.
able to recognize you on the street.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so in this particular situation, and this was in August of last year, that's important because there's a season to nonprofits, and this is a part of that season.
Hmm.
Well, he decides he wants to support this organization that's local, and but he wants to get a little more information and really get to know the leadership. So he makes a totally spontaneous phone call to the office, and the gal answers the phone, and she's very polite, and he identifies himself by name,
Hmm.
and he asked to speak to the ED, the executive. I think her
Hmm.
name may have been Julie. Okay, and uh, and here was the response he got. Oh, Mr. Smith, thank you for calling. Now Julie is really busy these days. She's planning our fall gala, but she'll get back to you probably a little bit after that, maybe the end of October.
Mm.
Do I need to finish the call? All right. Now, was she being rude? No. No. She
Mhm.
was doing what she was told to do. This
Yeah. Yeah.
gala is our number one priority, and nothing
Hmm.
gets
Hmm.
in the way of that.
Yeah.
Instead of being having that intelligence and understanding of what the relationships with investors should be, so that when someone like this drops in over the transom, I say, and identifies
Hmm.
themselves, here is my suggestion for a better
Hmm.
response. Oh,
Yeah.
Mr. Smith, it's a pleasure to speak with you. Julie's in a conference this morning, but she'll return your call this afternoon. What
Hmm.
number should she use to return the call?
Yeah.
Is that a little different?
Oh,
Okay,
much different. Yeah. Yeah.
and and it
Absolutely. Yeah.
and it all comes from really understanding what's going on.
Hmm. Hmm.
See, and we see that all the time, where what I call aligning the organization for fundraising or for
Hmm.
philanthropy.
Hmm. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
uh, and you just
Yeah.
talked about it. Everyone
Oh,
was
yeah.
giving lip service,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
but you could tell by looking at the, oh yeah, they're just waiting to get out of here. It must be near lunchtime. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. 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 That's a beautiful, and terrible, but beautiful story of it.
And
Why do we
unfortunately, it
exist?
happens. It happens more often than you might think, actually.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. 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 Yeah, it's hard to communicate what the number one value of an organization is. But when it's done, for example, I had the chance to do some work with Disney, and it's something Walt Disney started doing in the 1950s in Disneyland when it first opened. Is he said, and he would meet the staff personally, and he would say every single day, I want you to do something that maybe it takes a minute of your day, 3 minutes of your day, 5 minutes of your day, but I want you to do something that creates an experience for one of our guests that they will never forget.
Bingo.
And he said every single day, because that's why we exist. And if you think about this nonprofit story last August in Montana, a town of 5,000, why do they exist? But it's so easy for me to get distanced from why I exist, even just as a person. And if I'm an organization that has 100 or 1,000 or 5 people, if I'm forgetting to say that, I was doing some leadership work with 3 people, high level, in a nonprofit in New York. Right, we had this big event at Citi Field where the Mets play, and they do a massive fundraiser once a year. You would know the nonprofit,
Okay.
absolutely. You
All
would
right.
you would probably know all 3 organizations involved in this. But anyway, they have this meeting, and I'm coaching 3 of the leaders. That's why I'm there. I'm not there for the nonprofit. I'm there because I'm doing leadership work, and all 3 of these high level people do the nonprofit as part of their leadership curriculum. Right. So I'm sitting there watching them run this meeting, and it's a 90-minute meeting, and it is perfect. The perfect meeting. I'm thinking like agenda, accountability, timelines, healthy debate, discussion. I'm thinking this is great. And then the meeting's at the end, and they're saying, "Oh, you can go out on the field, you can take pictures in the dugout or on the pitcher's mound, because the Mets play there. The one of the better teams, in I don't know, in New York."
We're not mentioning that other team that plays there.
No, we're
No.
not right now. But so, and I'm thinking as a leadership, coach sort of, what do I tell these three people? Because that was really, really, that was done great.
Yeah,
But it
what's
hit
to
me,
improve? What's to
but it
improve?
hit me that there was only one thing missing. And that one thing made the whole meeting feel completely empty. No one in that whole conversation took out 30 seconds to say, why does it matter so much that we do an amazing job with this year? And all it would have taken, Larry, is one person to say, because of the work of this nonprofit, um, my mother or my grandmother extended her life by probably a year or two, and that's the time when she got to know my kids. And in 14 seconds, there's a heartbeat. There's like a pulse on like, and they that year they missed their goal by almost 30%. And I'm telling you, Larry, leadership like clockwork. I mean, everything was perfect except there was no like, why does it matter that we do a good job with this? And if I forget that, a whole bunch of things, it's a domino. It's like domino number one. Boom. If I don't knock it down, like I don't ask for like that. I missed the phone
Mhm.
call from that person who could have completely transformed my work forever. Because I forget, like, wait, why are we doing this again? Why are we doing this again? We're trying to build something sustainable that in 50 years and 100 years, that, like, it touches this person's life. And, the 14-second piece is so important because it doesn't, I don't need a 30-minute video to show why our work is important. All I
Mhm.
need is maybe every meeting, one person to stand up and say, it's really important what we're doing. And I just want to tell you real quick why it's affecting, my sister-in-law right now. And I'm glad we're doing this. Thanks, guys. And
Mhm.
then the pulse is the heartbeat is there again. You know, it's
You
like
know,
Walt Disney going and saying 5 minutes every day, make a memory. Mm,
you when you said that about Walt Disney, it reminded me what I tell nonprofits and nonprofit leadership in regard to those who invest. If you can give these individuals an experience that they cannot go out and purchase,
mhm,
that is meaningful to them,
mhm.
you won't have to chase money. You'll be attracting it
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
big time. You'll be attracting it. You don't have to chase it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so, but it requires inverting the dynamic here. It's not
Mhm.
about you. It's not about your wonderful mission. It's not all about the wonderful things you do. It's about the investors. And
Yeah.
what they consider valuable may not be what you consider valuable.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you need
Mhm.
to understand that.
Yeah.
Um, so there you go. All right.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of something that happened to me this week. Um, if it had already been scheduled, I would tell you what it is, but it hasn't been scheduled yet, so I'll wait. But it's something that I've wanted to do for a couple of years. It would be something that I could not buy under any circumstances, and
Mhm.
I am the investor's agent in this particular situation. And I was
Mhm.
talking to the organization. I said, I would really like to do X.
Mhm.
Sure, we can make that happen.
Mhm.
Okay. Um,
Mhm. Mhm.
does it really cost any money? Well, not really. I have to
Mhm.
travel to experience it, but that's and for them, it's simply making a space for me.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
but it's something that's very meaningful to me,
Yeah.
and that's where you have to be very sensitive to what people are thinking and doing.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
so now you got a book in the mill here, something else new coming out, Jonathan.
Yeah, I mean, I've written a few, but yeah, I have this will be book number 5, I guess. Wow. And I never wanted to write a book, actually. So somebody conned me into doing it, and I tell this to people all the time: get it one more. They put it in the calendar between now, maybe 30 days from now. get one more person who makes you positively uncomfortable. And one of these people, and he was a person I never thought I could meet him. He wrote books. I think he sold 30 or so million books now. And I went out of my way to meet him at a conference years and years ago. Got him to sign a book, said, "Can we keep in touch?" He said, "Sure, here's my card." I find out that he gets 400 emails a day about his books. And the email doesn't go to him. But I went to see him speak somewhere else and told him what I thought of the first book. And this time he said, "Huh, I know a book you'll like." And he gives me this book. He's like, "Yeah, let me know what you think of that book." And he writes his cell number on there. But anyway, we kept in touch. And I tell that part because I just challenge people to do that. Take that little
Mhm.
30-day challenge. Go out of your way to find one more person who makes you positively uncomfortable. You know, um,
Positively uncomfortable.
Positively uncomfortable.
Positively uncomfortable. I like
Yeah,
that. I like that a
yeah,
lot.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
it's like going to the gym and upping your weight a little bit. And I'm a little uncomfortable doing this.
Yeah, yeah.
It isn't about strutting around impressing other people. Um,
Hmm.
I have to do that, and the, the pressing of the weights there.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, positively. So then you have a
yeah,
new book coming out.
yeah.
You do have a new book coming
Yeah, I
out.
do. I do. My fifth one, I'm about 75% done writing it. And actually, it's funny on this topic, we've been going out of our way to find nonprofit leaders who embody servant leadership, but including that needs not wants part,
Mm-hmm.
including the tough conversations part, the confront reality part. And
Mm-hmm.
because we want it to be very, very practical. I like to write books where people say, "I could do something with that right now." Most people like, I don't need just the picture of the future. I've looked back at people who have coached me in life, and they tend to give you three things. They tend to give you what could be, what is, and what's next for you.
Mm-hmm.
And we want this book to be very much that, where it doesn't just, a lot of leadership books will paint a picture of what could be, which
Right.
is helpful, but I need something that also shows me what is in my world, that holds up that mirror, that says, okay, yeah, this is where you really are compared to what could be. And then what's the very next step for me? You know, and for a lot of people, it's getting one more person that makes them positively uncomfortable. For a lot of people, it's
Positively uncomfortable.
positively
Understood.
uncomfortable. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when is this thing going to come out, Jonathan? You going to tease us or?
Yeah, right now we're looking at fall. I don't tend to rush books. I like to let them marinate, and I like to typically, because I spend a lot of time in the real world, in the leadership world, and I like to give clients pieces of the book and let them try to live it, and then tweak because under that needs not wants, a lot
Mhm.
of us need something explained slightly differently, so that then we get it.
Yes, then
So
we get it.
we're looking at this fall. But we've been doing a lot of work on this topic for a while, and it's one of my favorite things to cover.
Oh, now you've really teased my interest here. Okay. All right. In this fall. Well, we'll have to have you back for sure when it is released.
In
All right.
Boise, in
Okay.
Boise.
Okay. All right. There you go. All right. I'll be your MC.
I love
Okay.
that. Now, you've
All right.
always been in Boise, or no?
No, moved here in 2006
Ah,
from Western New York.
okay.
And I came out here for my last stint in higher ed,
Mm,
and then I stayed and
wow.
founded my own company. I really enjoyed here very very much.
Hmm.
It's not for everybody, but
Hmm.
I enjoy the outdoors and I enjoy the kind of relaxed family environment that it is.
Hmm.
And I've been in big cities my whole life, and I've been there, done that. Don't feel the need to be there. Although Boise is growing, and to some of us, that's not necessarily a good thing. But it is experienced a lot of growth just in the last few years.
Yeah.
But it still is a manageable size, and we do
Hmm.
have very good weather, and we have very good air connections. I can go just about anywhere pretty quickly,
Hmm.
which is kind of a shh, don't tell anyone about that.
Right.
Um, I did. I just had my CEO that lives in Kentucky here last week for our retreat, and he's always amazed how easy it is to negotiate the Boise airport. And you probably know
Mhm.
that too.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, no, Ed, you don't need to be there 3 hours ahead of time. No, no, I will pull you right up, and 20 minutes later, you're going to be in the departure gate. There you go.
Mhm. Yeah.
Oh, really? Yeah. So I hope that
Oh,
never changes.
I like it a lot, but they clearly, my last trip to Boise, people there told me very straightforward, don't tell anyone about that. Tell them it's full. So don't tell them anything good.
No,
We've got enough people. We're good. We're happy where we are.
yeah,
But yeah,
there even bumper stickers that say "We're full, go
we're
home." We're full.
I love that. I love that.
Uh,
I went to the Alpenhaus downtown. It's like a deli, but it's a very traditional German deli
mm-hmm.
downtown Boise. The
Yeah,
last time I was there, yeah,
yeah.
there.
Okay.
I love
Well,
finding those hidden gems that somebody local owns it, and
well, you come out here and I'll show you a couple more. How's that?
I'm in. I'm in.
Okay. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for doing this. I really appreciate it. I really do. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been having a delightful conversation, and this probably won't be the last one. At least I hope it isn't. Jonathan Fanning, self-styled leadership leader and TEDx speaker and author extraordinaire, and just a lot of fun to be around. And thank you, Jonathan, for taking your time to do this.
Thank you. Thanks for what you do.
All
Really
right.
appreciate it.
Thank you for listening, and we'll see you again soon.